John had it all: money, power, and luxury beyond imagination. But when it came to love, his heart was scarred. His 5-year relationship with Sarah had ended in betrayal, leaving him broken. The pain of discovering her infidelity had cut deep, and John found himself lost in a world of silence and solitude. He vowed never to let anyone get close again, closing the door to his heart forever. He threw himself into the family business, believing that work could fill the emptiness. Every meeting, every decision, was driven by a need to avoid the painful memories of the past. Yet, despite the empire he was building, John couldn't escape the hollowness he felt inside. No matter how much he achieved, it couldn't heal the wound Sarah had left. But there was one person who wouldn't let him remain in his fortress of isolation: his mother. A loving woman, she had always dreamed of seeing John married, but she also saw his pain. Still, she was relentless in her attempts to pull him out of the shadows of his grief. Over the years, she had introduced various women into his life, hoping one might soften his hardened heart. But John resisted every time, seeing the very idea of love as a cruel reminder of his failure with Sarah. Yet, his mother refused to give up. She had one more candidate in mind: Sophia. Sophia was everything John didn't want: beautiful, successful, and famous. Her life seemed perfect, a shining example of the glamour and wealth that John had always distanced himself from. She was the daughter of one of John's mother's old friends, and as far as his mother was concerned, this was the perfect woman for him. Still, John couldn't see beyond the surface. To him, she represented everything wrong with the world of wealth and superficiality. Despite his reluctance, John agreed to meet Sophia. From the moment they sat down, the atmosphere was tense, filled with awkward silences and unspoken judgments. John's skepticism was apparent, his eyes constantly scanning the room, as if searching for an escape. And there was no denying that Sophia's world was far removed from his own. She was obsessed with her image, constantly seeking approval from the press and top executives. Every word out of her mouth seemed calculated, as though she was always performing. The more he learned, the more John realized how much her life resembled the shallow world he had left behind with Sarah. But while he noticed the similarity, it was her lack of authenticity that troubled him most. John found it painful to be around her, the memories of Sarah's betrayal haunting him with every forced smile and every empty conversation. But his mother didn't see it. She believed Sophia could fix what had been broken in John. In her eyes, Sophia was a perfect match. Her beauty and status would bring stability to John's fractured world. But for John, the idea of opening his heart again felt impossible. He had already suffered enough. And despite his mother's insistence, John knew deep down that no matter how much Sophia represented their ideal match, his heart was already closed to love. John's life was consumed by his family's business. The empire was growing, but his heart was a cold, closed-off fortress. As his mother continued to pressure him, John grew more resistant. During a casual dinner with Dr. Harrison, a close friend, John shared his thoughts on love, marriage, and the pain of betrayal. "I've had enough," John sighed, his voice bitter. "I'm done with love. If I ever want children, I'll adopt or use a surrogate. No strings attached." Dr. Harrison, a man known for his unconventional ideas, listened carefully before offering a surprising suggestion. "John, you could go the surrogacy route. Find a young woman willing to carry your child without emotional ties. You could make it a clean deal, $50 million for a boy, $30 million for a girl, no questions asked." John was intrigued by the idea, seeing it as a way to avoid the complications of love while still fulfilling his desire for children. After a brief discussion, Dr. Harrison began searching for the perfect candidate. The idea intrigued John. It seemed like a way to avoid the complications of love while still fulfilling his desire for children. After a brief discussion, Dr. Harrison began searching for the perfect candidate, and John found himself considering a future with children, but without the emotional ties he had once shared with Sarah. Emily had never expected her life to take such a turn. She was in an abusive relationship with a controlling boyfriend, trapped in a cycle of emotional and physical abuse. When Dr. Harrison approached her with the offer of surrogacy, it seemed like a way out, a way to escape the horrors of her current life. The money would change everything for her, and she could finally start over. She hesitated at first, But after much counseling and encouragement from Dr. Harrison, Emily agreed to become John's surrogate. Moving into a rented apartment, Emily began her journey as a surrogate mother. As the weeks passed, she became pregnant, but her abusive boyfriend noticed the changes in her. His jealousy grew, and he began to torment her even more. Desperate to protect her, John hired security to keep her safe. Despite the transactional nature of their arrangement, John found himself becoming more involved in her life. He couldn't ignore the pain she was enduring, and his concern for her safety began to deepen. Despite his best efforts to remain emotionally detached, John couldn't help but become more involved in Emily's life. He checked in on her regularly, making sure she was safe and comfortable. Emily, in turn, appreciated the protection he offered, though she still viewed their relationship as strictly business. As she grew further along in her pregnancy, Emily began to open up more to John. She shared her dreams, her hopes for a better future, and the pain she had suffered in her past. For the first time in years, John felt something stir inside him. Emily's strength and kindness, qualities he had never expected to find in someone in her situation, touched him deeply. He started to look forward to their conversations and began to see her in a new light. What had started as a cold, business arrangement began to blossom into something more, something John hadn't thought he would ever feel again. Meanwhile, Sophia began to notice John's increasing distance. He had become preoccupied with something or someone else. She sensed that he was withdrawing from her, and her jealousy grew. Sophia, always one to protect her status and image, started digging into John's life. She soon discovered that he had been spending a significant amount of time with Emily, the surrogate. Sophia didn't know much about Emily, except that she had no wealth or connections, nothing that could serve Sophia's ambitions. Feeling threatened by the growing bond between John and Emily, Sophia confronted John's mother, accusing John of dating another woman. John's mother, suspicious and worried for her family's reputation, began investigating. Her investigation revealed the truth: John was seeing someone else. Furious and hurt, she confronted him. But John, now emotionally detached from everyone, refused to let his mother's pressure influence his decisions. His heart had already begun to move in a different direction. Sophia's desperation to regain control over John led her to take drastic measures. Fearing that Emily would destroy everything she had worked for, Sophia hired an assassin to eliminate her. It was a plot born from jealousy and insecurity, one that would soon spiral out of control. The day the assassin was sent to kill Emily, John and Emily were enjoying a quiet evening in the garden. The assassin approached, aiming to take Emily's life. In the chaos that followed, John acted instinctively. He blocked the assassin's bullet, taking the hit himself. Emily was shot in the shoulder, and she fainted. John, gravely wounded, was rushed to the hospital. As he lay in critical condition, his mother arrived at the hospital, horrified to see her son fighting for his life. The doctors fought to save him, and as the days passed, it became clear that John had narrowly survived the attack. But Emily, too, was fighting for her life, clinging to consciousness on life support. John's mother was beside herself with fear and guilt. She never imagined her son would be in danger because of a woman he barely knew. As John recovered in the hospital, his mind was focused on Emily. She had been shot because of him, and he felt a deep responsibility for her safety. The assassin was arrested, but Sophia's involvement was still unknown. 3 weeks later, Emily was secretly moved from the hospital to an undisclosed location for her protection. John, now fully recovered, instructed his security team to ensure Emily and the unborn child remained safe. He couldn't risk Sophia or his mother finding out where Emily was. His once solitary, business-focused world had now been turned upside down, and he was entangled in a web of lies, betrayal, and emotions he had long tried to avoid. The day John was discharged from the hospital, a detective arrived with urgent news. "We've arrested the assassin. They're under interrogation now," the detective said, his voice calm but serious. John's eyes hardened. He knew the investigation would soon uncover the truth. As John and the mother got home, the mother began to query John. "I told you, John, it's time to cut ties with that girl," she insisted. "Marry Sophia. She's the one who will help you secure the family's future." John replied the mother, "I can never marry Sophia, She is the devil in wolf clothing. She is not who you think she is. She is worse than my ex-girlfriend Sarah. She is busy sleeping with all top executives just to get modeling contracts, and that kind of person doesn't deserve a place in this family. John felt the pressure mounting, but his resolve only grew stronger. He had seen Sophia for who she truly was, and he would never marry her. He had found someone else, someone real. Emily had stolen his heart in a way he hadn't expected. As the argument between John and his mother escalated, Sophia walked in and started saying, "I am not going anywhere. You must marry me, and I have sacrificed a lot for this relationship." Just as they were on top of their voice arguing, the detective entered the room and said, "John, I have the evidence. Sophia, your fiancée, is the one behind the attack. Sophia, you're under arrest. We have proof that you funded the assassin," the detective declared, holding up a file of evidence. Sophia's face drained of color. She had been caught. The truth was out, and John's mother was left in disbelief. The woman she had once hoped would be her daughter-in-law had betrayed her son in the most unimaginable way. John watched in silence as Sophia was handcuffed and led away. His heart was heavy, but it wasn't for Sophia. It was for Emily, who had been hurt in the crossfire of a battle she hadn't even known existed. John turned to his mother, his voice steady but firm. "I want you to know something, Mom. Emily isn't my girlfriend. I am actually not dating her. We had a contract, and that's why you see us together." The mother replied, "What kind of a contract will keep a billionaire and a poor-smelling girl who has no class together?" It was then John openly confessed, "Mum, she is my surrogate." After my series of heartbreak and when I discovered the dirty dealing Sophia was doing just to get a contract, I decided to confide in a doctor friend of mine who advised me to get a surrogate who will bear me children with no string attached, and as a matter of fact, she's carrying my child, and now I intend to make sure she and the baby are safe. His mother's expression changed as the shock settled in. "What? But why didn't you tell me earlier?" she asked, her voice shaking. "I didn't want to complicate things," John replied softly. "But it's real, Mom. Emily is my surrogate and she is carrying my baby, and I think now you know, she deserves more than just being a surrogate. She deserves to be part of this family, as my wife if you agree, because this few months of trying to protect her, I have seen something special and great that Sophia with her class lacks." The mother, filled with bitter and confusion, left the sitting into her private room to mediate over what she has heard. It was very difficult for John's mother to come to terms with her son, considering the facts that Emily is a child of nobody and doesn't deserve a place in the family. She was busy meditating, what will I tell my billionaire friends and colleagues that my son is or wants to get married to a child of nobody. But in the other hand, as she remembers that very soon, she will become a grandmother, her mood will brighten. A few days later, John decided to invite Emily to meet his family. His mother, who was still processing everything that had happened, was reluctant but eventually agreed when she remembered that she will soon be a grandmother. The family home, once a place of wealth and formality, became a space filled with uncertainty. John's mother, though she had pushed for Sophia, now found herself facing the reality of her son's choices. As Emily walked into the family home, John's mother watched her closely. She was no longer just the surrogate. She was the woman carrying John's child, and John was determined to welcome her into their family. The warmth in the room, the smiles, the acceptance, it was a new chapter for them all. And though the past had been filled with pain and betrayal, John knew that this was where his heart truly belonged. John's life had taken a turn he never expected. He had found love in the most unexpected place, and he was ready to embrace it fully. Emily was no longer just carrying his child, she was the woman he wanted to spend the rest of his life with. It was a love story born from pain, but one that had the potential to heal and grow. As Emily looked around the room, feeling the warmth of the family's acceptance, she knew that her life had changed forever. She had found love in the most unlikely of places, and for the first time, she felt truly at home. The future was no longer uncertain for Emily. John had shown her a love she never thought possible. And as she looked at him, she knew that their journey together had only just begun. John's life was changing in ways he never anticipated. Emily, once a woman trapped in an abusive relationship, was now an integral part of his family. Their relationship, born out of an arrangement, had grown into something much deeper. As Emily settled into the family home, John's mother slowly warmed to her, despite the initial shock. The two women began to bond over their shared love for John, and Emily's strength and resilience earned the respect she deserved. John's mother, though still struggling with the loss of the woman she had hoped John would marry, began to see the value in Emily. She realized that, despite her humble beginnings, Emily possessed the qualities that John had always needed: love, loyalty, and a quiet strength. John, too, noticed how the dynamic between them was shifting. He found himself more at peace than he had been in years, knowing that he had finally found someone who understood him and loved him for who he truly was, not for his wealth. As the months passed, John and Emily's relationship grew stronger. John had always been cautious about love, but with Emily, he felt something different. They spent their days getting to know each other, and John found himself opening up in ways he never thought possible. He watched Emily blossom from a woman who had once been broken into someone who could bring light and warmth into his life. One evening, as they sat together under the stars, John turned to Emily with a serious look on his face. "Emily," he said, taking her hand, "I've been thinking about something for a while now." Emily looked up at him, her heart racing. "What is it, John?" she asked, her voice soft. John took a deep breath. "I want to marry you," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "You're the woman I want to spend the rest of my life with." Emily's eyes filled with tears as she nodded, overwhelmed by the sincerity in his words. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." It was a moment neither of them would ever forget. John had found the love he thought he would never experience again, and Emily had found the safety and support she had longed for. Their journey, once complicated and uncertain, now had a clear path ahead. Sophia, now imprisoned and awaiting trial for her involvement in the assassination attempt, was consumed with rage and bitterness. The world she had once known, the life she had planned for herself, had crumbled around her. She had lost John, her freedom, and her place in society. But her anger was not yet quenched. Using her contacts in the underworld, she sent John a message, a final, desperate attempt to regain control. "I won't forget how you humiliated me, John," the message read. "If you think I'm done with you, think again. You've made a powerful enemy." John, now free from Sophia's manipulations, read the message with a calm detachment. He had faced far worse in the business world, and Sophia's empty threats didn't scare him. He knew that he had to remain vigilant, but he refused to let her bitterness dictate his future. "I'm not afraid of you anymore, Sophia," John muttered, crumpling the letter and throwing it into the fire. "You've already lost." With Sophia's influence waning and the threat of her schemes diminishing, John focused on the future, a future with Emily, their child, and the life they were about to build together. John knew that his life was about to change forever. His love for Emily was undeniable, and he had made the decision to make her his wife. As he approached his mother with the news, his heart pounded in his chest. This was the moment he had been waiting for, to make it official. "Mum, I want to tell you something," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I've officially proposed to Emily, and she's agreed. With that, I want to cancel the surrogate contract and make it official." John's mother, who had been so resistant to the idea of Emily at first, smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "That's wonderful news, John," she exclaimed. "Let's have an engagement party. Let's make it official." The engagement party was a grand affair. Billionaires from all industries attended, each one eager to witness the union of the wealthy and powerful. It was an event filled with joy, laughter, and celebration, and for the first time, John felt truly happy. His mother made sure that Emily was showered with gifts, and despite their initial tension, they shared a genuine moment of connection. The day after the engagement party, the wedding took place. It was an intimate affair, with close friends and family in attendance. The love between John and Emily was palpable, and for the first time in a long while, John felt at peace. The future was bright, and he knew that this was just the beginning. After the wedding, John and Emily's bond continued to deepen. They worked together to build a future, focusing on raising their family and creating a home filled with love. John was more present than he had ever been in his life, and Emily, who had once struggled to survive, now felt like an equal partner in their journey. Together, they tackled every obstacle with strength and determination. Emily's pregnancy was a time of joy and anticipation. John was there for every step of the way, attending doctor's appointments, arranging their home, and preparing for the birth of their child. Emily, who had once felt unworthy of love, now felt cherished and protected. The once solitary billionaire had found his heart, and Emily had found the safety and love she had always dreamed of. Their days were filled with laughter, conversation, and a shared vision for the future. Despite the obstacles that had brought them together, John and Emily knew they had found something rare and precious, a love that was built on respect, understanding, and mutual support. The day Emily went into labor, John was by her side, holding her hand through every contraction, whispering words of encouragement. It was a moment of pure emotion for both of them, a moment they had never thought possible. Emily, who had once been alone in the world, now had a man who would stand by her through everything. When their son was born, both John and Emily were overwhelmed with joy. They had created something beautiful together, a child who represented their love, their journey, and their growth. John gazed at the newborn with tears in his eyes. For the first time in years, he felt whole. The baby was a symbol of everything they had fought for, a future free of the past's pain and betrayal. Emily, now holding their son in her arms, smiled at John. "We did it," she said softly. John kissed her forehead. "No, Emily," he whispered. "We did it together. And this is just the beginning." John's mother became the happiest grandmother in the whole universe seeing her grandson. She was pleased. She was busy buying her grandson most expensive gifts you could ever think of. John's mother, though initially shocked by the sudden changes in her son's life, began to embrace the new reality. She had once pushed him toward a future with Sophia, but now she saw that Emily was the one who had truly captured John's heart. With their son's birth, John's mother finally accepted Emily as a part of their family. She showered them both with love and support, and the tension that had once existed between them began to melt away. Family gatherings became filled with laughter and joy as John, Emily, and their son spent time together. The once tense household was now a place of warmth and connection. John's mother, who had once been so focused on controlling his future, now found peace in knowing that her son had found the love and happiness he deserved. As the family grew closer, John realized that he had finally found what he had always been searching for, not through wealth or power, but through the love of the woman who had become his partner in every sense of the word. With the birth of their son, John and Emily knew their lives would never be the same. The challenges of parenthood, their careers, and their personal growth were just beginning. But no matter what came their way, they would face it together. John's business empire continued to grow, but he now understood the importance of family and balance. Emily, who had once felt like a victim of her circumstances, now stood strong, empowered by the love and support of her new family. Together, they navigated the complexities of raising a child, and their bond only deepened. As they looked ahead to the future, John and Emily knew that their journey was just beginning. They had overcome the darkness of their past, and now, with their son by their side, they could create a future full of promise and possibility. As they looked ahead to the future, John and Emily knew that their journey was just beginning. They had overcome the darkness of their past, and now, with their son by their side, they could create a future full of promise and possibility.